Today, we are diving deep into the real architecture of influence. We're not just talking about, a simple debate tricks or trying to sound motivational.
Right.
We're really analyzing the DNA of successful persuasive speaking.
Getting down to the fundamentals.
Exactly. And the sources we've looked at, they give us this fantastic structural blueprint.
Yeah, they really do.
It seems like every argument, whether it's just a casual pitch or, a big courtroom closing, they all follow this surprisingly consistent framework.
It's true. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
And knowing this framework, that's like the ultimate shortcut to getting your thoughts organized and making sure your message actually, lands with impact.
Definitely.
Okay, let's unpack this. So our mission here is to uncover these basic structures, these strategies behind persuasion that actually work. And the really neat thing about this framework, I think, is how simple it is at its core.
It really is.
The sources show that basically every persuasive speech, like no exceptions, tackles one of three kinds of questions.
Just three.
Fact, value, or policy. If you can figure out which bucket your argument fits into, you're halfway there organizationally.
Exactly. And understanding those three categories is it's absolutely essential. For anyone who wants to build an argument that genuinely persuades.
Why is that distinction so critical?
Because mixing them up is probably the #1 mistake people make. Novice persuaders.
Ah, okay.
If you treat a question of value like it's a question of fact, your whole argument just stalls. It falls flat.
Because you're arguing about truth when you should be talking morality.
Precisely. Or vice versa. So we really need to dig into what makes each one unique. What kind of evidence does each one actually need?
Got it. Okay, so let's start right at the bottom. The foundation, questions of fact.
The bedrock.
These are about whether something is ultimately true or false. Did it happen? Does it exist?
Right. Verifiable stuff.
Needs evidence you can actually point to. The sources had a really powerful example. The murder trial.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic fact question.
Did the defendant commit the act or not? That's it. That's the objective fact everyone's trying to pin down.
And that hunt for objective truth, it doesn't just stick to the past.
Oh.
Yeah, what's really interesting is that questions of fact also cover future events.
Future events, like predicting things.
Exactly, predictions.
Yeah.
But they're still fundamentally arguments about fact.
Okay, explain that a bit more.
Well, think about an economic forecast.
Right.
Or predicting an election.
Right.
If you argue about who's going to be the next president, well, obviously we don't know the answer yet.
Sure.
But it's still a fact that one specific person will win.
I see. The outcome itself is a future fact.
Precisely. So your argument is about which factual outcome is the most likely. You're making a case for a factual prediction, which means you need evidence, good reasons, data, whatever, to back up why your prediction model is sound.
Okay, but wait. That brings up something, a potential complication.
The one.
Using that murder trial again, the core question is fact. Did they do it? Yes or no? But isn't the whole thing wrapped up in value judgments like, we value justice, we value life? How do you cleanly pull apart the, did it happen, from the, is it wrong?
And that's exactly where the lines get blurry for people and why arguments fail. They mix the streams.
Okay.
A question of fact only asks, what is? It demands objective proof, data, witnesses, records. The second you bring in a moral angle, you've shifted gears.
So the court figures out the fact.
Yes. Did the action happen? And then the legal system applies a value judgment. Is this action right or wrong according to our laws?
Gotcha.
If you're debating someone and you start arguing about the morality of, say, taxes, when your opponent just wants the facts on how much tax was collected, you're not even in the same conversation anymore.
Right. Two different types of argument entirely. That clarifies the evidence needed. Okay, so if fact is about truth, reality, stuff we can verify, then questions of value, that's where we get into judgments, perceptions, morality.
Exactly.
Is something good or bad, better or worse, right or wrong? Like arguing maybe that one diet is better than another. Or the source's example, that princess movies are bad for kids.
And right there, with questions of value, we hit this absolutely critical piece for persuasion.
Which is?
You must provide criteria.
Criteria.
That's the key insight. That's what lifts your argument from just, your personal opinion.
To an actual persuasive case.
Exactly. If you just say princess movies are bad, everyone immediately thinks bad according to what standard?
Right.
You have to give them a clear yardstick, a set of criteria to measure that judgment against.
And the sources were super specific about the kind of language to use here. 4 criteria.
They were.
Often these comparative ER words, right? Safer, faster, cheaper.
Cleaner, newer, stronger, closer, longer lasting, all those.
So if I claim product A is better than product B, I can't just leave it there.
No way.
I have to define better using one of those measurable criteria, like product A is better because it's cheaper.
Precisely. And now you have a quantifiable value criterion. Or maybe you argue product B is better because it's longer lasting. That's a different criterion.
Ah, okay.
And the really deep dive here is realizing you often need to pick your criterion based on who you're talking to.
Tailoring it to the audience.
Yes. If your audience is really budget conscious, arguing cheaper is probably going to be way more persuasive than arguing longer lasting, even if both are technically true.
Makes sense.
So a question of value speech, it's really a fight over which criteria matter most. You don't just state your criteria, you have to convince the audience that your criteria are the right ones to use for judging the issue.
That's a much higher bar than just stating an opinion. Okay, so we've got the truth laid out with fact. We've made a judgment using criteria with value. And only then, if we've done those jobs well, can we move to the final level of persuasion, the question of policy.
The action step.
Exactly. These arguments are all about action. Should we do something or should we not?
Right. And policy arguments really depend on getting the first 2 steps right.
How so?
Well, you can't really argue that the government should pass a new traffic law that's policy
Okay.
until you've first shown the fact that current laws lead to more accidents and then establish the value that saving lives is worth the cost or effort.
Oh, okay. Policy builds on fact and value. It's the payoff.
It's the culmination, of the whole rhetorical journey. And like you said earlier, policy splits into 2 really important and quite different types.
Right. Let's start big picture first. Public policies.
Okay.
These are about whether some large group, an organization, an institution, maybe a government agency should or should not take a specific measurable action.
And that measurable part is absolutely key there.
Why measurable?
Because it takes the fuzziness out of it. It removes the subjectivity.
So you can tell if it actually happened or not.
Exactly. If the action can be objectively seen and tracked, it's a public policy. Look at the sources example. The U.S. should not mint pennies.
Okay, yeah. Clear action.
It's clear. It involves an institution, the U.S. Treasury, and it's measurable. We can easily verify if they stop making pennies or not.
So the challenge there is proving the benefits outweigh the costs of that specific action.
Pretty much. You have to show that the cost may be financial, maybe logistical, maybe even political, of taking that measurable step is worth it based on the value you established earlier.
Okay, but what about, like, political reality? I could argue really persuasively, based on facts about recycling rates, that our city should mandate universal composting. That's measurable. It's public policy.
Yep, that's the definition.
But what if I know for a fact the city council will never fund it?
Right.
Is arguing for it still a valid policy argument? Or just tilting at windmills?
That's always the tension, isn't it, with public policy?
Yeah.
But the sources, they're focused on the structure of the argument itself, not necessarily its immediate political success. For structuring your persuasion, you have to focus on that specific, measurable action. If you argue the city should do composting, you focus on that policy structure, the cost. That just becomes part of the factual and value evidence you need to present. If it's wildly expensive, well, that's just strong factual evidence against your policy proposal.
Okay, so the potential failure doesn't change the type of argument. It just weakens the case for it.
Exactly. It undercuts your evidence, but it's still fundamentally a question of policy.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, let's shift gears then. From the big institutional stuff to us, the individual listener, personal policies.
Right. Directed straight at the audience.
These are about actions the audience members themselves can, and you argue should, take in their own lives. You know, the common examples. You should exercise more, or you should eat less red meat.
Yeah, the you should arguments.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because now the audience is the subject.
It gets interesting, and maybe a lot harder, too. Because, as the sources point out very clearly, people are fundamentally, well, egocentric. Meaning they care most about what affects them personally. Their health, their money, their time, their convenience.
All right, what's in it for me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you propose a personal policy, You're often asking them to change habits, things they do every day, things that might be deeply ingrained.
That sounds tough.
It often is. That's why this type of policy argument, even though it might seem small scale, like just in a classroom, can be the hardest one to actually win.
Because you're challenging their personal choices.
You're challenging them to stop doing something they like or start doing something that takes effort. It hits them right where they live, literally.
Wow, and the sources put this really starkly, didn't they?
They did.
When you argue for a personal policy, especially a big change, you're essentially telling your audience you've been living your life incorrectly.
And I have the answer. Yeah.
That's a bold claim. Aggressive, even. Potentially really off-putting if you're not careful.
Extremely. Which leads us right into the rules of engagement for making these kinds of arguments stick.
Exactly.
Because that personal policy challenge is so direct, basically telling someone they're doing life wrong. The strategy behind how you deliver it, and even what topic you pick, becomes absolutely critical.
Right. These aren't just tips. They're like essential rules for actually getting heard, not just tuned out.
Precisely. It's about engaging them, not just throwing information at them.
Okay, so let's look at rule number 1, audience alignment, or maybe misalignment.
Oh, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Your topic needs to be more than just relevant. The sources insist that most of your audience must disagree with your position. That feels backward, doesn't it, as a persuader? Why wouldn't you want people nodding along?
Because the whole point of persuasion is to create movement, not just reinforce. Exactly. If your audience already agrees with you, you're not persuading anyone. You're just giving an informative speech, maybe making them feel good about what they already believe.
Like preaching to the choir.
Precisely. You cannot persuade your college class to go to college when they're already sitting there, enrolled. It's completely redundant.
Okay.
The sources say you need to aim for the people who are undecided, or maybe just mildly opposed. Those are the ones you actually have a chance of shifting.
So you need genuine friction, a real point of contention.
You have to find an argument where there's something actually at stake, where change is possible.
That's a really important distinction.
Okay.
And when you're arguing for personal policy, telling people they're wrong, basically you're guaranteed that friction.
Oh, absolutely.
Which immediately brings up the second big rule, speaker credibility.
The big one.
If you're asking me to make a fundamental change in my life, you better be living proof, right? You better walk the walk.
This is probably the highest hurdle, honestly, and the sources. They are absolutely crystal clear on this. You must demonstrate credibility through your actions, or sometimes your inactions. Actions really do speak louder than words in persuasion.
So the speaker has to actually do or not do the very thing they're trying to persuade others about.
Has to. The source gives that killer negative example.
The college dropout one.
Yeah. You absolutely cannot stand up in front of your college class and persuade them to drop out if you yourself are still enrolled.
Right.
The hypocrisy, the sheer dissonance there, it just completely obliterates your argument before you even get to your points. Your value claim is dead on arrival.
So if I'm arguing, say, for the amazing benefits of waking up at 5 a.m. every single day, but everyone in the audience knows I routinely roll out of bed at 9 a.m.
Your argument's toast.
Doesn't matter how good my data is, how compelling my reasoning.
Nope. It's meaningless. It's a total structural collapse, and it's rooted entirely in your own behavior. The audience basically says, if it's so great, why aren't you doing it? They grant you moral authority based on your consistency.
Wow. Okay. Credibility is non-negotiable then.
It really is. And that reliance on consistency, on the speaker being authentic, it leads straight into the final strategic rule we need to talk about.
Which is?
The need for novelty.
Novelty, as in something new.
Yeah. Think about it. If you have amazing credibility, you practice what you preach. But you're arguing about a topic everyone already knows they should do.
Like recycle more. Or wear your seatbelt.
Exactly. Those are old, stale policies. You lose the audience immediately.
Why? Boredom. Been there, heard that.
Total boredom. Information overload, but it's information they've had a million times. They just tune out, check their phones. Mentally, they're gone.
Because the new information value is basically zero.
Precisely. So the best persuasive topics, especially for personal policy, they challenge the audience to try something or start doing something they have genuinely never thought of before.
Something fresh, unexpected.
Exactly. That novelty grabs their attention. It makes them lean in. If you want to argue for a lifestyle change, don't just say exercise more.
Be specific.
Be specific and original. Argue for, I don't know, a specific niche fitness app they've never heard of, or a unique dietary tweak, or some weird micro habit that sounds intriguing.
Something they haven't encountered before.
Right. That freshness makes them receptive. It feels like you're offering them new knowledge of potential discovery, not just nagging them about homework they already failed to do.
Let's do it.
We've got the three core questions.
Yeah.
Fact, what is true? Value, is it good or bad based on criteria? And policy, should we act?
Foundational structure. And then the three strategic keys for actually making it work. You need audience disagreement to have a point. You need absolute speaker credibility to be believed. And you need novelty to keep them engaged.
Yep, that's the framework.
It really feels like a shortcut to building arguments that are not just logical, but actually powerful.
Wow.
Persuasive.
And all that careful building, that structure, it leads to one last, absolutely mandatory step, something that locks it all in.
Okay.
The call to action, the CTA.
Ah, right. You can't just leave them hanging.
No. And the sources are really strict about this part. Your CTA can't be passive. You can't just be, think about this later, or maybe go home and read up on it.
It needs to be immediate, tangible.
Immediate and tangible, yes.
Yeah.
It has to be something the audience can act on, or at least demonstrate commitment to right then and there.
Like physically do something.
Yes. It could be as simple as asking them to pull out their phones right now and download an app related to the policy you just argued for.
Oh.
Or maybe in a classroom, you ask volunteers to come to the front and try a quick demonstration of the new behavior or technique you proposed.
So that immediate physical act, what does that do?
It forces engagement. It makes them internalize the message in a different way. It's not just abstract thought anymore. It's a physical step towards accepting the policy change. It solidifies it.
That physical commitment, that immediate application, that's the final piece, the lock on the whole persuasive structure.
That's how you make it stick.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. If credibility is so absolutely essential for persuasion, requiring the speaker to practice what they preach, to be consistent, what does that really imply about the long-term effectiveness of arguments we hear all the time? From, say, public figures who often, well, fail to live up to their own stated policies. If their arguments about facts and values might even be solid, but their own adherence to the policy they advocate is weak, where does that argument actually break down for you as a listener? Is it just the hypocrisy, or does it undermine the whole structure? It's something to think about.
Yeah. That's definitely something for you to mull over as you encounter all the arguments swirling around you this week.